Hello and welcome to the Gameweek 9 edition of the FPL Scope podcast. I am one of your hosts, Matthias, and with me today I have, as always, my good friend Kevin, who is turning 30 pretty soon. And to celebrate that, we're going to Barcelona to watch some games, and that's going to happen on Saturday. We're going to travel to Barcelona, and then on Thursday we're going to travel back. So, videos for next week. I'm not 100% sure how we're going to do it. Maybe I'll bring my camera and my microphone, potentially. I have thought about that. But if not, you'll have to survive until Thursday when I get back for any videos on, well, basically the whole show, and especially the podcast. I don't know if we'll be managed to, or if we manage to record that, but either way, looking forward to that trip. Looking forward to see you in Barcelona again. You were in Oslo not too long ago, and it will be nice to see you again because you're turning 30, so it's about time you retire, I think. What do you think, Kevin? How do you feel about turning 30, the big 3-0?
Yeah, I used to be quite scared about it. Used to give you a lot of grief just for being older in general, even though I used to make fun of you for being 21 when I was like 18, and now
19, okay.
we're now 30 and 32 respectively. So it's not great. It's not great. So in regards to that, no, I'm not worried at all. I think it's just one of those things with time. People eventually get used to growing up and all the trials and tribulations that come with it. The older I get, I think the more comfortable I get with that fact. So it's all good. Yeah, can't complain.
Fair enough. And looking forward to Barcelona trip, I'm sure.
Oh, very much so. It's been a few years since I went back, and yeah, very much looking forward to it. Very annoyed that a bunch of the boys are injured, but nevertheless, it's fun that a bunch of them are coming back from injury as well. So, a league match against Bilbao and a Champions League match against Shakhtar Donetsk. If we get 6 points, so 3 points from each game, I'll be very happy.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to be exciting, but it's also exciting to have football back in general. I mean, we've had international break, but as a Norwegian and you as a Swedish person, not really too much to be happy about with the international break, and also obviously the whole thing with Sweden as well. Thoughts go out to those guys that lost their lives. That's crazy. And yeah, obviously the football thing slightly less important in that aspect, and as well as the whole like conflict in Israel and Palestine. We're not going to talk too much about that on this podcast because this is supposed to be like a way to kind of escape from that. But yeah, obviously any innocent lives being lost is terrible. But either way, we are excited about football being back properly in terms of league football. Fans Premier League is going to be back. Premier League is going to be back. The league is going to be back. Every single thing that we want to basically just take our mind off all the difficult stuff. It's going to be back. So yeah, let's just take a look at the fixtures that we're going to have in the Premier League this weekend, and the predictions we're going to have for this game week as well, because we both done our predictions for this game week, and it's pretty similar. But let's just go through all the matches and compare and contrast basically, and look at each game. First game, we are actually in agreement. It is Liverpool against Everton, the Merseyside derby. You've backed against your team Everton with a 3-1 win for Liverpool, and I have done the same. And I think this is pretty self-explanatory, this game. I think Everton are good enough to score a goal, but I don't think they're good enough to get a proper result. I don't know if you know this in terms of results, but how many times have we won at Anfield the last like 20, 30 years? Do you know?
I don't know the figure off by heart, but I think it's like two or three at most because we won very recently during the COVID years and stuff like that, and with the Richarlison goal. But yeah, it's definitely single digits, and it's definitely embarrassing just how terrible we are at Anfield and generally speaking in the Merseyside derby because I don't know. It's just one of those things where we very much become little brother, which is really annoying considering the fact that we are, in fact, big brother, as we were a club. We were incepted before Liverpool was. Liverpool is a splinter cell of Everton. So, yeah, it's really frustrating having to listen to the red shite just constantly give a shit when we lose and we lose badly and all this type of stuff. There have been some tightly contested games recently though, but I don't think this is going to be tightly contested. I think they're going to be pretty comfortable and win. If they don't, that's going to be shocking, especially considering the fact that I felt that Liverpool have pretty much been the dark horses of the Premier League this year. Like, I think they've been much better than people are giving. Like, they're not getting their credit, and I think that's a bit interesting. Yes, they lost in a very dramatic way against Spurs, but besides that, I think they've been excellent. Like I thought that
Yeah.
win against Newcastle was super impressive, and in the way that they did it, and a lot of the wins have been coming late, and they've shown a lot of fortitude. And Mohamed Salah mainly has been fantastic. I think I've had him since game week 1, and I don't think I'm actually ever going to get rid of him at this rate. I think he's just been that good.
Yeah. Fair enough. Any doubts after the Brighton game? Because Liverpool probably should have won that game as well, but ended up 2-2. And especially Everton as well. They've been pretty decent lately, so maybe it could be tighter than we expect. Do you think there's any chance of Everton getting a point or three, potentially even?
Point definitely. I've seen enough grit in these guys that it's finally building that momentum that we've always wanted out of the team, and also getting the obvious wins that we should have been getting. I still think about the first five, sort of matches that where I'm like, why are we losing these super attainable games? So yeah, for that reason, yes, of course. But as you said, recent games, form dictates a lot of it too. It doesn't have to always just be historical fixtures and etc. So could I see us escaping with a draw? Yes, but nothing more than that. If we win, I'll be ecstatic, especially considering the fact that we'll be in Barcelona by the time
Yeah.
the game's kicking off and stuff. So
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on to the next game, and we have a disagreement. That is Bournemouth against Wolverhampton. I've gone with a 1-1 draw, but maybe I should give some more credit to Wolves, because you're going with a 2-1 Wolves win, away win there for Wolves, because Wolves have looked kind of impressive in several games this season, and Bournemouth have sort of struggled to get their season started. But I think at this point, if Iriola's project has any legs, then they need to get points in the easier home matches. So I think they're going to get a point. I think it's going to be a pretty closely contested game. I feel like Wolves sort of play up to their opposition. It seems like they play really well against the bigger teams, and then they sort of drop down a bit when they play sort of lesser teams. And they've also been pretty bad away in general, I think, especially last season as well. But so I'm going with a 1-1, but you're going with a 2-1 Wolves win. Is that mainly due to Wolves, mainly due to Bournemouth, or a mixture, or what's your thinking in this game?
I think it's a mixture. I also think Pedro Neto and that Korean guy basically have been destroying the Prem lately. I mean, I think handsome Han just perfect. He's been awesome. I've been very impressed with his play to the point where I'm considering even getting him in Prem, like in FPL,
Mm.
because he seems like such a nasty little differential. Because what is he listed as a midfielder?
Yeah, it's 5.3 or something as well in price. Huang, handsome Huang.
Yeah. So so for that reason, uh, yeah, I think him and Pedro Neto are just gonna go ham. I also think I don't know, like Bournemouth have not sort of gone off the hump of like I think they're sort of like doing what Everton's been doing. Like something's just not clicking at all. And I
Yeah,
think it's a shame because they have a lot of good wingers. They have some decent players here and there, but yeah, unfortunately, just hasn't clicked. And I think that's why Wolves are finally gonna get that elusive away win.
yeah, fair enough. They actually, I think they won their first match or second match away from home. They lost against Man United at Old Trafford, and I think they won the next game at home or away. But yeah, away from home they've been in general pretty poor. But yeah, I think Bournemouth as well, after the international break, they have a little bit more time to sort of get their team together and stuff. So hopefully for them, it works out better now, because I think they have a lot of interesting players, like you said, a lot of interesting wingers as well. Too many, in fact. Kind of like Burnley as well. I have a lot of young, interesting wingers as well. But speaking of Burnley, that's the next game. It is Brentford against Burnley, and I've gone with a 1-1 draw again. Brentford getting a point at home, I feel like that's attainable. But you have all the 3 points for Brentford. 2-0 win over Burnley, because Burnley have not looked impressive at all this season. And Brentford started off the season pretty good, and now they've sort of fallen off a bit. So yeah, do you think this is an easy win for Brentford, 2-0, or do you think it could be tighter?
I think it could be tighter, but I think it's also just a matter of fact of I think Brentford are sort of in trouble if they don't start to pick up these easier points. And I think this, on paper, is an easy 3-pointer for Brentford. Of course, their form hasn't been great, and Buemo's looked a bit. I don't even know. I don't feel like he's out of form. I just think that positioning wise has just been a bit wrong. Like we've seen him play at like right wing back when he's a very good right winger, or even like a false nine. So it's a bit
Mm.
annoying to see because I, as a club and sort of how they run things, I really like the way the Brentford do business and etc. Tony withstanding, but yeah, I think this. I mean, surely Tom. Like, I don't think Thomas Frank is going to get sacked if he loses this game, but surely questions will start creeping up about like what the hell's going on and etc. If he doesn't like at least in your case, get a point, which is good. But I think he needs to sort of get that win. And I think
Mm.
one of the other players that needs to sort of step up is Wissa. I think he's been completely out of form. Some of the misses that he does per game is like people have been writing Nicholas Jackson really hard, and that's simply, I think, because he plays for Chelsea. At those two swap positions, I don't even know what would happen to us, to be honest, because I think he's been that shocking. I hope he sort of raises his game because when he's good, he's very good. I've liked what I've seen of Wista,
Yeah.
especially last season as well. So yeah, I think that's why Brentford will get sort of like a not a comfortable win, but like just a decent win. You just need
Yeah.
to get. Sometimes you just need 3 points, and if even if it's a shitty way to get it, do it, sort of thing.
Yeah. On paper, they should win, and I sort of regret going with the draw there because I've just been down on Brentford in general.
Yeah.
But yeah. You're also speaking as someone with experience when it comes to Wissa, because you had him in your FPL team and you were super annoyed with him because you brought him in on
Yes, of
the
course.
Gameweek 4 wildcard, and he was really great for Gameweek 1 and Gameweek 2 and Gameweek 3. After that, he's been missing chances, and Brentford have sort of been a bit lackluster in general after that. But yeah, let's move on to Man City against Brighton, and we both have a 2-goal win for Man City. I have 3-1 and you have 4-2. Do you think there's going to be a lot of goals in this game? I can assume with 4-2.
Yeah,
So in terms of FPL especially, is this like an easy decision in terms of Salah captain? Or Salah captain? Haaland captain? I was thinking about Salah because I was comparing it to Salah 3-1. But Haaland captain, is that like kind of easy with the goals you expect from this game?
I think Holland himself is not happy with how things have been going with Man City, and especially when he score such a technically difficult goal like he did for Norway. I think that's going to be the sort of confidence boost that he needs.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to go and smash Brighton for sure. I think I can't remember for certain what his tally is against Brighton. Do you by any
Can't
chance
remember.
know?
Can't remember last season.
But generally speaking, I think Brighton are a bit lackluster defensively, and especially at the Etihad, I think Holland's about to go nuts.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, he scored a really nice goal against Cyprus in the international break, but against Spain, he couldn't really get any chances because Spain just completely destroyed Norway, basically. But yeah, Holland is still a great striker. I know he's been sort of down in terms of form lately. I sort of questioning him a little bit in terms of like being the same player as he was last year. I don't think he's going to be reaching those types of levels anytime soon, and we know he's not going to win the Ballon d'Or either. It's pretty much going to be Messi. I think it's kind of confirmed at this point. But yeah, he's still a really good option, and Brighton at home. That's why I backed Salah last week, because he played Brighton at home. And now Holland gets the same chance with potentially a better team. I don't know. City and Liverpool is going to be interesting to see how they finish the season. I think because City have sort of been struggling a little bit lately, and yeah, but the international break probably served them well. I think 3-1 is just normally what I go with when it comes to Man City against a tougher team, and what I go with when it comes to Brighton, whether it's them losing or winning. Brighton always seems like a team that could score, but they also seem like a team that can concede a lot of goals. So yeah, 3-1 or 4-2, I think it's going to be a City win, but I wouldn't be too surprised again if Brighton once again get some points from the bigger teams, because they have been really good against those teams. But yeah.
Yeah, just a little add. He scored a brace in the reverse fixture in the sense that, yeah, last time they played City played Brighton at home, he scored a brace.
Yeah, and he scored once against them away as well. So 3 goals
Yeah.
in 2 matches. That's pretty good from Holland.
Yep.
Next match is Newcastle against Crystal Palace, who both have a clean sheet for Newcastle and a win for Newcastle. I have 2-0, you have 3-0, and I sort of get it because Newcastle have been one of the best performing offensive teams so far this season as well. But I just think Crystal Palace are better, like good enough to get that respect, to not lose by 3 goals or more. But it is Newcastle, which is a completely different ballgame from what Palace had last time against Nottingham Forest. And also Newcastle have shown that they can be pretty ruthless when it comes to winning matches. They beat Aston Villa 5-1, and they obviously destroyed Sheffield United. Was it 8-0 or 7-0? I can't remember. 9-0, something like that. Was it 8-0? I think it was 8-0.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I'm going with 2-0 Newcastle. You're going with 3-0 Newcastle. But I want to ask you about the clean sheet possibilities here. Palace, they don't have Eberechi, they don't have Michael Elise. Saha is obviously long gone. Edouard is also struggling with injuries still, I think. I'm not sure if he's back for this game. So how certain are you about the clean sheet for Newcastle in this game? That's what I want to ask you about mostly.
I think it's quite high. I think also that Newcastle have shown that St. James Park isn't somewhere to mess around with, because if you do, you'll find out. So I think Newcastle have a very high chance of keeping the clean sheet, especially with all the injuries that you mentioned. I always think Mateta is, perfectly fine Premier League striker and stuff, but if the service isn't there in terms of Eze, Elise, and even Edward and all this type of stuff, I reckon they're going to be under the cosh a lot and just have to deal with Almiron, Trippier, Gordon, and all those guys. So yeah, I think it's going to be a tough night. Of course, this Tonali news could hamper the team, and that can show on the pitch. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine. I think they're going to absolutely destroy them. So, like, yes, I think it's respectful enough that I didn't go with higher than like a 5-0, a
Yeah.
gentleman's sort of 3-0. But
Yeah, it really depends on how early Newcastle can score that first goal as well,
yeah,
if they get a goal. Because yeah, that's what I'm sort of envisioning. I'm envisioning Palace maybe surviving the first half, and then second half Newcastle got a couple goals.
yeah,
But yeah, it's a difficult game for Palace in general without the attacking talents. They're not going to offer that much going forward, and that's going to help Newcastle push forward as well. So yeah, really tough game for Palace and pretty easy game for Newcastle if you still have Trippier, Burn, all those guys. If you have Gordon, if you have Isak as well, it would be a really interesting game. Depends on Wilson and how he uses his injury news. The latest injury news with him is, but yeah. Next game is respectfully the least interesting game, I think. It's this game week. That is Nottingham Forest against Luton. Nottingham Forest at home, we both have a clean sheet because we don't think Luton will score, but I could see a cheeky Carlton Morris goal potentially. But I've gone with 1-0 Nottingham Forest. I just don't think Forest have too much going forward, especially with Avoni injured. But I think Gibbs White is someone that could be a good 1 week punt, which we're going to talk more about in the next segment. So I'm thinking 1-0 win for Forest there. I don't think Luton can get much. And you have 2-0 for Nottingham Forest as well. Just quickly on this game, really. Any chance Luton turn out and get the 3 points from this game?
I don't think so, but I think a draw seems like a likely result because I forgot that
I
the
want to.
Nigerian supremacy is injured. So,
Mm,
but maybe this is the Gibbs White show that everyone's been expecting for a long time. So, and I think so too because I think it's finally he's sort of the main attacking threat for them. I mean, they got Chris Wood and whatever, but unfortunately, um, for Gibbs White, yes, it does suck that Owani is out, but I'm assuming Alanga's not injured, so that should be fun. I think those two
Mm.
could potentially tear Luton and Newcastle. So that's why I think it'll end 2-0. And I'm not bitter at all that they were able to somehow fucking beat us at Goodison Park. So yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Next game is the big London derby between Chelsea and Arsenal, and I've gone with a 3-1 Arsenal win. I think Arsenal have wind in their sails, especially beating Man City last time. So I've gone with an Arsenal win, but you have 1-1 here after Chelsea have had like kind of bad results so far this season. How did you reach that conclusion? Because for me, it was pretty easy to go with an Arsenal win, even if it is away from home. Historically, Chelsea have been better than Arsenal, but I think the last few seasons, especially last season, I think Arsenal beat them twice, was it? Because Chelsea have barely won any games this whole calendar year, basically. So yeah, what made you go with a draw here? And do you think, yeah, I don't know, what do you think about this game in general? I don't really have a leading question either here.
I think it's just I have a feeling that Poch is gonna sort of do what he did to Liverpool, and in the Liverpool game, they definitely should have won Chelsea. But I think he's just gonna get a respectful draw, in the sense that I liked what I've seen of Chelsea in terms of the Burnley game. I liked what I've seen of Sterling all season. He's not injured. He didn't get picked for England as well, so he's fresh. So I think, which again, that's not disrespectful from Southgate, but he also didn't take our boy James Ward-Prowse, so
Yeah.
fuck him. So in that regards, I think there's things to be optimistic about for Chelsea, even though they've been very sluggish. So I think it's going to be a much more tightly contested game because of that, and I also think that it's completely justified for everyone to be like 4 or 5-0 to Arsenal
Mm.
because Chelsea have been dog shit all season, and it's been quite humorous to me to say that to my brother who is a massive Chelsea fan. So, uh, but that being said, I think there's something about this game that makes me think it's going to be a more tightly contested game, and that's why I've gone with the draw. And out of all the games that I could have predicted, that's the only one where I was just like, there's something about the draw that sounds appealing.
Yeah.
However, Arsenal could easily run away with it. And I also think it's Saka dependent on that as
Yeah.
well. Because if he's not playing, then I think definitely the ball is on the court for Chelsea to try and at least secure a point. Do I see Chelsea winning it? If they do, it's going to be super narrow. That's going to be like a Diassi header or some bullshit like that. It's not going to be a conventional sort of win. It's going to be very late and all this type of stuff. But generally speaking, it's more looking like they say in betting terms, X2. It looks like a draw or win for Arsenal. Doesn't look like
Yeah.
a Chelsea win though.
Yeah.
That much I can say.
Fair enough. I can sort of see that happening as well, but I don't know. I'm leaning towards Arsenal. I think Arsenal have everything that it takes to
They
basically
have
win the league.
Declan Rice, and I want him to win the
Yeah,
Premier
they
League.
do have Declan Rice, so they are amazing. Declan Rice, by the way, it's crazy how much people are considering him a much better player now than it was last season. And Declan Rice said it himself. I've been doing this at West Ham for years. I don't know why I'm like all of a sudden getting all this praise because yeah, I've always known that Declan Rice is an amazing player, and maybe he gets the winner again like he did against Man United because he is that guy. But either way, let's move on to the next game, and that is Sheffield United against Man United. And we both have a Man United win. I have a 2-1 win for Man United because I think nothing comes easy for Man United lately. They should win this game. Sheffield United are atrocious, so this could be the game where they finally explode Man United and get like 3 or 4 or 5 goals even. But it is away from home. You're going with a 2-0 win for Man United. I think that's also very reasonable. Could be even more, like I said. So yeah, 2-0, easy win for Man United, do you think? Or do you think it's going to be a struggle still for Man United, as it always is?
I think it'll be comfortable enough, sort of thing. Like, I don't think they're going to run riot and like get the 2-0 early or anything like that. I just think that they're, like you said, it's going to be a bit of a struggle, but they'll get it across the line. Bruno was really good for Portugal, like some of his
As
goals
always.
and yeah, his goals and assists were awesome. So
Mm,
makes me really frustrated that I might actually consider keeping him another week, but here we are. And also, Rashford scored really nice goal as well.
Yeah.
Højlund looked really good for Denmark.
And scored.
There's, yeah, that too. And I think just generally speaking, a lot of these United players did really well uh, for their national teams. I'm obviously very proud of BNL for what he did with Sweden. That's making a nice
Lindelof. Yeah.
Lindelof, yeah, because he was the main person to basically ask to call off the game with
Yeah.
everything going on and etc. So yeah, I'm very cautiously optimistic of United's chances against Sheffield United, which is a sentence I would never have said prior to the season. But here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think it's a game that they should win, and if they don't get 3 points here, I don't know what's going to happen with Ten Hag and Man United and all that stuff, because they have Man City in the next game week as well. So, yeah, tough times ahead if they don't win this game. So they really need to win this. Next up, we have my favorite team, West Ham, playing away against Aston Villa, and I've gone with the surprising West Ham win, which is kind of crazy considering how good Aston Villa have been at home this season. They destroyed Brighton 6-1. Could happen the same against West Ham, maybe, potentially, but all I know is that West Ham have a really good grip against Aston Villa the last few seasons. Like, I think the past 10 games, I don't think they've won a single one almost, Aston Villa. And I think that's going to continue. I think West Ham are really good, and I'm going to back my boys. 2-1 win for West Ham. You're shaking your head, and you've gone with 3-1 for Aston Villa. So you think I'm crazy about this with this suggestion, or you think there's a chance that West Ham get all the 3 points in this game?
I don't think there's a single chance that West Ham gets all 3 points, and if they
Yeah.
do, it's going to be like the most sort of like tightly contested win. I don't think you guys, if you win, you're not going to win by 2 goals, for example. Like I
No?
think if you win, it's going to be like 89th minute James Ward-Prowse to Kurt Zuma bullshit sort of undeserved. These guys have shot 40 times and you've somehow just scraped away a win. That's the only way. Genuinely, that's the only conceivable way I see
It's
you guys
Watkins
win.
shooting, so that could happen.
True, but also Watkins
Could also score
on one
brace. I
point.
know. I know.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I know.
um, so for me, and that's fun that my light source just died. Um, for me, unfortunately, I just think Aston Villa sort of sprung into gear, looking good at home. Sorry. If this was at, if you guys were playing at home, it would have been a completely different thing. I would have definitely been more up for a West Ham win at the London Stadium, but currently, no, 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 no. Goodbye.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I'm just going to back West Ham. I did it last week when they played against Newcastle. I had them with a draw, and I got the correct result on that one. And you did not, because you went for a Newcastle win. So hopefully the same thing happens again. But yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if Aston Villa win the game
Did it
either.
end a draw? Oh God,
Yeah,
yeah, I guess
2-2
it
between West Ham and Newcastle. And we should have won it as well. We had a huge chance towards the end.
Kudos.
And the referee was against us, but that's a different story. Let's move on to the final game of the game week, and we have the same score. It is Spurs against Fulham, and we both are pretty optimistic when it comes to Spurs, and we're both pessimistic when it comes to Fulham. So we have 3-0 win for Spurs. Is there any other way than a pretty big Spurs win here? They have sort of struggled to beat the likes of Luton and Sheffield United, so maybe not. Is 3-0 a bit too optimistic, especially considering Son is coming back from international break? I mean, Madison was international break, but that was in England. I don't know. Is there any reasons for concern here for Spurs, or is 3-0 just a given?
Marcus Silva's a dog shit manager and finally getting found out. So no. I think it's all steam ahead. They've been really good at home, and yeah, uh, Kulisevsky is looking great. Madison's looking great. Son's looking great. Richarlison,
Is there?
nah, leaves more to desire, but he'll get there. So I think with that sort of front line in different positions working well, then yeah, I think anything's possible. And I think yes, they are a bit. touch dependent on Son, but in these sort of games, you saw what happened last time, where we were hoping and praying so Madison and Son wouldn't do anything, and it was like a
That's true.
Kulusevski that and Richarlison that showed up and got that win against Sheffield United. So yeah, if we're lumping Fulham as a Sheffield United sort of level club, then I still think they're going to be fine. I just don't know if it's going to be, like you said, the obvious scores that will do the business.
Yeah. And you don't even have a single Spurs player on your team as well, so that must be kind of nerve wracking, especially as it is the final game of the game week as well. Everything else, the game week could already be terrible, and then the Spurs play, and it becomes even more terrible. That could happen. But yeah, not to put any doubts in your mind in terms of your team, but either way, let's take a further look towards the future in terms of FPL and look at the fixture checker for the next 5 game weeks. And I looked at this last week as well when I did the podcast by myself because our schedules just didn't match up properly. But either way, I have one main question for you, and that is for anyone with a wildcard in Game Week 10 or planning to use the wildcard in Game Week 10. What is your favorite, or what are your favorite like 1 week punts in terms of Game Week 9? Just having a player for Game Week 9 only, and then wildcarding him away potentially. Which players are you looking at in terms of defenders, midfielders, and forwards? Pick out maybe 1 or 2 of each, I guess, for that 1 game week, Game Week 9.
Sure. I think in terms of mm, okay, we'll start with defenders. I think an adult, like if people, I don't know, want to. I personally think if you have a doggy, don't get rid of him just because they have really good fixtures going forward. Yes, the Chelsea one, Derby, whatever, but you can always just bench him for one of the other players. So I think Adogi or Pedro Porro, if you got both, because I know the people that might have Pedro Porro might want to shift him because they'll be able to save money or etc. I think both are great options. I think Pedro Porro especially was super unlucky not to score. Like he
Yeah.
just missed the post, and what we call it, Adogi was really good offensively and got some nice assist passes, but either they opted to pass instead of shooting and all this type of stuff. So Adogi didn't end up
So would you
getting
so would you
the
go for
assist.
both if you don't have Madison and Son? Would you go for both Udogi and Poro? Double up?
Nah, not a
No?
double up, but um, at least have one of them
Okay.
for sure. I'd say one's the premium option in Poro, and I think is the better option. But if you're pinching pennies and you still have it, Ogi, then I'd say keep him because the next couple of game weeks looks good. I sort of regret getting rid of him, sort of don't, because my replacement for him was Dan Burn, and is a point king or point god. So yeah.
Yeah, that's defenders. Any midfielders you're looking at in these teams? You have a couple good games. Nottingham Forest at home. We mentioned Gibbs White
Yeah, yeah,
already.
yeah.
See someone
One
in
more
Buemo
game.
obviously for Brentford.
Yes,
Um,
definitely those two. I'd obviously say Bruno Fernandes or Rashford if you are one of those unlucky son of a bitches who still has either or, and you plan on wildcarding next week, then 100% keep them for this game because I think United were, or both Bruno and Rashford were unlucky not to have done anything in the win. Bruno, of course, did do the cross to Maguire, who then got it across to um,
McTominay.
McTominay, who went absolutely apeshit. So definitely still think that Bruno's really good, especially in these matches where they are the dominant team and against Sheffield United. I think and he seemed to be a bit of a road warrior this year. So I think Bruno, especially, is looking tasty. I also think Rashford, after scoring for England in a game of that magnitude, will do him wonders in terms of confidence in front of goals. So if you got either or, they're good shouts. Obviously, I would say if you have Diaby, keep him. I've heard a little bit of discourse because of his injury and stuff like that, but nah, man, he's gonna be flying, and I think he's
Against
gonna
West
rip
Ham?
a new. Yes, I
One
think
one
against
week
West
punt?
Ham. I think against West Ham, against Luton, against all these guys. I think if you have him or want to get him in, yeah, I think against West Ham it could be very tasty.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and obviously load up on Liverpool Darwizzy for forward. I think
Yeah, is he going to play though after international break? He was also sort of hobbled when he played in the Uruguay game as well.
scored though, scored a very very good goal.
Yeah,
Yes, sort of depends considering the fact that it is the Saturday and early kickoff. So keep an eye out. But if you hear team news, because that could get
that's
leaked,
the early match. Yeah,
and Darwizzy starts, I think he might be a decent little differential pick.
I have one Liverpool player actually that I'm pretty interested in getting because especially with the international break, we've seen that last time around as well. Darwin was on the
Yeah,
bench and Diaz as well was on the bench to start the game against Wolves. And that pretty much leaves with Gakpo being injured as well. That leaves one guy, apart from Salah, obviously, and that is Diogo Jota. I think Jota could
yeah,
be a really good shout because yeah, he hasn't had that long travel and all that stuff. He's a really good player. We know what he can do in a single game week. He's been pretty explosive as an option, and he's back
yeah.
from suspension as well. So I think Diogo Jota is a really good pick in terms of midfielders. He's 7.7 as well, so that's my pick at least for midfielders for someone who's a bit differential as well. Like not that many people have Jota at all, so yeah, I think he's a really good pick. But in terms of forwards, you mentioned Darwin already. Any other forwards? Someone like Højlund could be a potential shout there. Wolverhampton don't really
Yeah,
have any strikers.
yeah,
Mm,
Highland's definitely one of them. I think if Isak,
Isak, yeah, for sure.
yeah, I think Isak is definitely against Crystal Palace at home. Seems like
Mm.
a pretty standard Isak sort of game. Obviously, the Sons Richarlisons of the world. I was kidding. Both of them are listed as midfielders. Forwards, eh, all of the ones that I mentioned so far. Obviously, I think Ollie Watkins could do the business against West Ham. Julian Alvarez, if you don't have him and you just want him for
Mm-hmm.
one match, 100%, as long as,
If he starts.
yeah. And I'm sure with the City guy, he usually leaks stuff pretty early, so
Yeah, he might get team news.
we'll
But
have it
any other
when,
City players in general? Because Brighton at home, like you said, 4 goals you have them scoring that game. It's not all going to be Haaland either. And if Alvarez doesn't play, maybe someone else. I don't know. Any other City players that are of interest to you?
Riyad Mahrez and Ilkay
Yeah,
Gundogan, who
I
they've
wish.
failed to replace, in my opinion, because I think,
Mm.
whilst I
I mean,
really like
Doku's great.
yeah, like whilst I think Jeremy Toku's great and stuff, he's not that sort of like instant impact sort of player. He still needs to build that up and will become a world beater. Don't get me wrong, but it's just sort of when all things fail, I felt like City had more backup plans than they currently have. But that being seen, Doku is an option. Phil Foden's an option as well. Despite Phil Foden playing against Italia. But I think those guys are a definite option. I don't know what the current affairs is with Grealish. Is he back now?
I'd assume so, but I'm not sure.
Because if he is, maybe a tasty little pud. Because I reckon if all these guys aren't going to start, then someone like Grealish could step up and hit that form again, as long as he's not injured. I'm not 100% certain about that.
Yeah,
But other than that, I mean, you could go for Morris if you already have him, sort of thing. But we've already, like I've already said, that I think Nottingham Forest is gonna comfortably win. So avoid him.
yeah.
Avoid Burnley, probably. Bournemouth. Could you go with the Solanke? Can Solanke do the business against against
Wolverhampton.
Wolves? Yeah, he could definitely could. But we've discussed why we don't think that's a good idea. But yeah,
Pedro
he
Neto.
could. Padroneta, yeah, in midfield,
Juan.
definitely. Juan, 100%.
Yeah,
Handsome Juan. I think those guys are good options too, especially for 1 week punt
yeah.
for sure.
Grealish came on with 6 minutes left to play against Italy, by the way, so he's presumably he's going to be fit to play now.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Even though he's like probably short on fitness in general, so maybe he doesn't start. But like you said, we might get team news. Man City play at the 3 p.m. kickoff, which might finally not be blacked out anymore after the season, because apparently there are talks about that, scrapping that whole thing. That would be really nice for especially you guys living in the UK, because I think as someone that lives in Norway and yeah, it's really costly in terms of watching the Premier League, but at least we can watch every single game in terms of online and stuff. The way that it's set up in the UK in terms of both pricing and in terms of what matches that are being shown, I think it's pretty atrocious. And I think it's kind of crazy that it's not more uproar about that. But that's not really FPL related, but that's just a little tangent that I want to go on. But either way, were you saying something?
No, because the whole point of the 3 p.m. Blackout is to drive more fans to go to the stadiums, but that's bullshit considering.
In lower divisions, right? Isn't that sort of the thing?
Yeah, that's meant to be the case, but I'm not gonna go to some lower division game thing when I know that Everton are going to be playing Crystal Palace at 3 p.m., the team I support. So no. How about
this rule is set in place way before the internet and all the streaming and all that stuff that's available now. So people are going to find illegal ways of watching rather than watching legally, or watching games live. So yeah,
I'm glad if they ever did like a NBA sort of thing, like
League
or
pass
you could just if they ever did like a Premier League pass or even just like a club pass where you just get your club's 38 games, I'd gladly pay that.
Yeah, of course. That's the first part of History Checker that I want to ask you, the Game Week 9 differentials and or 1 week punts. I also want to ask you again about we did this last time we had a podcast, was it 3 weeks ago now? In terms of captaincy, any updates, like how are you looking for captaincy? I know Game Week 9 you're going for Haaland against Brighton at home, rather than going with someone like Salah against Everton at home, which makes sense. Everton have the early game. Spurs at home, you don't have any Spurs players, so you can't go with any one of those guys. But ideally, like what would be your preferred captain each game week, starting from Game Week 9? Do you think Haaland's still the best captain, even though...
Yeah,
even with Son and those guys?
I do think so.
Yeah.
Game Week 10? Game Week 10, I actually think it's 100% Salah.
Yeah? No Saka against Sheffield United at home?
I like it, but Nottingham Forest at home at Anfield. Yeah, I think. And also because we don't currently know the sort of situation with Saka.
Yeah.
So I think just by form and sort of how things have been going, Salah's the man currently. So yeah, I think I'm going to stick with my guns with Salah. Not to say that if Saka starts and everything like that, that he can't do the business against Sheffield United. But I also think if Odegaard does steal a penalty again, that's going to frustrate me to no end. Regardless if maybe it is as long as Saka scores first, he won't steal a penalty sort of thing. But yeah, that is a bit frustrating because Odegaard could every single game be like, I've got feeling, I bet I'm going to score this sort of thing. And then, then all of a sudden he is their pen taker. So yeah, for that, we know that Salah's the one who's 100% on pens now, which is annoying because I love Saka regardless of that, but it is really frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, from looking outside of FPL, though, it is pretty admirable from Saka to let 100%. People take penalties. So just another testament to Saka's character, which, is fantastic. But yeah. Game Week 11, there's a pretty big discussion between Liverpool against Luton away for Salah or going with Haaland against Bournemouth at home.
Haaland, Bournemouth at home.
Yeah. No question?
Yeah. No question for me. Okay. Unless Haaland's still shooting blanks, then he's out of my team. And I'm going to triple captain Isak at home against Arsenal. You can. It's been said on video. I'll be doing that.
Game Week 12. Any standouts there? You have Liverpool against Brentford at home. It's a pretty easy fixture. City playing against Chelsea away, which is kind of difficult. But you also have Spurs against Wolves away. I mean, it seems. Then you have Arsenal, I guess. Arsenal against Burnley at home. It's also another one. This is another Saka versus Salah sort of thing, I guess. Salah against Brentford at home and Saka against Burnley at home. Where are you leaning in that game week?
Ansu Fati against Sheffield United.
Fair
Let's
enough.
go.
That'd be
No,
cool, actually.
but I think it again. I just think Salah is the better asset out of. Whilst Arsenal are the better team, I think Salah is the best asset. So that's sort of why I'm always going to swing Salah's
Mm.
way. But of course, Arsenal at home against Burnley could easily end like 5-1. So for sure, I think Champions League dependent as well. Because if for some reason, because Arsenal play Sevilla next, and if they were somehow to lose to a brand new Sevilla manager and all this type of stuff, there's going to be a lot of bells and all this type of stuff. Whilst Liverpool are coasting away in the Europa League, so yeah, I'm going to be waiting and seeing how Arsenal do before committing to that. But I think the two viable options are those two.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Sodden away against Wolves could be fun, but I think, like you said, Wolves are fun and play well against the bigger teams.
Mm-hmm.
Probably why they beat us.
Let's not go that far. Game week
Don't take the piss, man.
Game week 13 is actually interesting, and that's something we haven't discussed yet either. It's pretty far into the future, though, so a lot can happen between then and now. But I think it's a really interesting game week because Man City play against Liverpool, so both Haaland and Salah, pretty tough fixture for both of them. And if you look at Arsenal, Brentford away, it's not too bad, but Brentford as well, one of those teams that play up against the better opposition. They could do well against Arsenal again, like they have been in the past. Spurs have a difficult game against Aston Villa. Man United against Everton away, don't really feel that good about them either. Do you think this is a nice game where you can go with a differential captain? And if so, who's sticking out to you in this game week? Newcastle as well against Chelsea. Like, there's a lot of difficult matches in game week 13. So what is your thinking currently with game week 13 in terms of captaincy?
Depending on if the Spurs train is going hard, that they're winning all their games and stuff like that, I think the Aston Villa game could be just a fun one to have. I don't know if Spurs will technically win, but it could be like one of those like shootout 3-3 sort of crazy goal fest. So yeah, I think maybe that has a good captaincy. I think you're not going to lose if you go with Salah over Holland.
Okay, away against City, Salah over Haaland.
Actually, I lie.
Haaland at home.
Holland at home. Okay, fine. Holland at home. Yeah, sorry. Holland at home. Yeah, you would go with Holland, right? Especially considering the fact that if any penalties happens, he's hogging everything. He's not going to give anything away, especially in probably one of the biggest games in their season besides the matches against Arsenal. I still think I don't know. Salah's usually pretty good against City, so that's why I don't hate him as captain, especially if they
Yeah.
get a cheeky pen or anything like that. Which we do know that City defensively are fucking shocking. Like either it's a comfortable 5-0 or 3-1, 2-1, 4-1, 6-1 sort of things where they always just concede the one. And obviously Liverpool, City have been shootouts lately, if I remember correctly,
Maybe. Yeah.
especially at the Etihad. So yeah, I think you
2-2
can
last
go
season,
with.
I think.
I think you can go with both either way, but I think a Spurs player could be a more fun pick for
Okay.
that week. I think that's the week where you can sort of avoid one of these two for
Yeah,
sure.
I think for me, Game Week 13 is one of those like standout. Like, this is where you can go with a differential captain, because going with a differential captain when everyone else is captain Haaland, that's very risky. Like, that could go really badly. But if Haaland plays really well in Game Week 13, for example, if he scores a hat trick in that game week, then like 25% maybe of people have captained him, maybe 30%, maybe a little bit higher, but it's not going to be too bad, especially. So I think this is a game week that is primed for having like a differential guy. So I'm actually leaning towards captaining, going with my own team here. Burnley away has been a really valuable fixture this year in terms of points. We've seen that with, both Son scored a hat-trick in that game, and last game week, someone scored a lot of points against Burnley. Was it Sterling? Potentially? Can't remember exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Sterling.
So for me,
And
I'm
Palmer.
leaning towards going with Jared Bowen in this game because I think that could be a really good game for him. He's sort of the same style of player as Sterling and Son, as like a attacking winger, sort of forward-ish winger type of player. So that's what I'm leaning towards currently with Gameweek 13. But that's very much into the future. So a lot can happen between then and now. Maybe Ansu Fati at that point against Nottingham Forest is a good shout. Maybe Mitoma is a good shout. Maybe Mohamed Kudus is playing every game for West Ham and is looking really good. So a lot of interesting things there. But I think in general, I think that is the game week where you could go with a differential captain. I think Game Week 9, Game Week 10, Game Week 10, or Game Week 9, 10, 11, and 12, it's pretty simple. Just go with Saka, Haaland, Son, or Salah, one of those four guys. And then Game Week 13, you can just sort of just let loose and pick someone completely different, I think. Those are just my quick thoughts about the captaincy for those game weeks. Let's move on to the weekly wildcard draft, which is something that I do every single week on this YouTube channel right here. And this is the team that I've come up with this week. What's the most controversial thing about this is the fact that Son has gone from number 1 in last weekly wildcard draft to completely out of the team now. And that's partly down to, firstly, he has already played one of his easier fixtures, the home game against Luton. And even leading up to that game week, between when I made the weekly wildcard draft and the game week starting, I'd gone from Son captain to Salah captain. Because I sort of felt slightly less interested in Son because he's struggling still with some nagging injuries and stuff. But yeah, they finished that easy game. They have an easy game against Fulham now, but that's also after Son has been gone with an international break as well. And after that, their fixtures in terms of attacking potential: Crystal Palace away, tough team to score against. Chelsea at home. Chelsea have been pretty good defensively so far this season. Wolverhampton away, another team that's pretty difficult to play against for the bigger teams. I just lost a bit of confidence in Son in general. I still think he's a good pick. I still have him in my own team, and I'm not going to sell him now at least. Maybe Game Week 10. I'm potentially looking to sell him in Game Week 10. But yeah, on a wildcard, I just wouldn't pick Son, I think. Do you think that's controversial? Do you think you would still have Son on a wildcard? And which midfielder in that case would you switch out of these 5 midfielders? You also have Maddison in midfield you can go with. You can go with someone like Neto. You can go with Gordon. There are so many options in midfield. So do you think you'd still go with Son on the wildcard yourself? Or do you think, who would you replace Son with if that's the case? Or would you go with Maddison over Son as well? That's also a different question.
I think it's really bullshit that you went without either or, to be honest with you. I do not rate this weekly wildcard draft at all.
Finally.
I do like the inclusion of cheap enabler Brantwaite. That's always nice to see. Even though he's 13th, for whatever crazy reason you think Areola is more essential than Brantwaite, but whatever.
Last time I'm better than Everton, so yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Bigger club as well.
Yeah. Fuck off.
When did you last win a trophy?
When was the last time you won a league title?
Never. We won a trophy 4 months ago, so yeah.
Yeah.
Or 5 months ago now, maybe. 6.
Okay, so history doesn't matter. Fair enough. That's good.
It does. We won the World Cup in 1966, so yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Fair. Yeah, never won a league title, but still has the gift of the gab. Fuck off. Anyways, Jared Bowen would probably be the one I would axe, or Mitoma, for Maddison.
For this one game week, I mentioned that as a possibility. Having Maddison for this game week, and then next game week you can sell Maddison for Mitoma. I think that's a viable option as well. Just to be clear.
Yeah, but I think it's just crazy considering the fact that they're playing Fulham at home.
Yeah, I mean that's the one game week. I think also, like you said, 3-0. We both have 3-0 in that game. I suspect that Maddison and Son will punish me in that game. Or I do have Son myself, so it's not going to punish me, basically. But yeah, it's just after that. I think their fixtures are pretty difficult. So that's pretty much why. I could have gone with Maddison. I was really close to going with him, but I just think Bowen's fixtures over the long haul is better. Mitoma over the long haul is better. But yeah, like I said, you could go with a 1 week Spurs guy and then sell him next week for Mitoma. You could also go with Son and then sell him for Saka next game week as well. That's also a viable option. But yeah, I'm just looking at the next 4 to 5 game weeks. with this team, and that's why I've gone without the Spurs midfielders in general. I do have Pedro Porro though, because I think defensively they're going to have easier fixtures. Palace are not going to score. Chelsea have struggled to score. Wolverhampton, it's easier defensively than offensively. So yeah, I was actually closer to doubling up on the Spurs defense than the Spurs midfield, to be honest, because there's just so many good midfielders in this game. But yeah, apart from the Spurs guys, any other people included or not included that you want to mention in terms of this team?
Yeah, Kieran Trippier, who's in the form of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Trippier again, like I've said this whole time, obviously I've been punished by going without him in both the weekly wildcard draft and with my own team. I know that I wish I could have done that differently so far, but now the fixtures are starting to be slightly more difficult. I mean, the next few are still pretty good, the next 4. Crystal Palace at home, Wolverhampton away, Arsenal at home, Bournemouth away. Could still see a lot of points from Trippier, but that's why I have Burn, because I think Burn for 2 million less, I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference, but I've said this the last few weeks and it has bit me in the ass as well. So yeah, I can totally see that point, but it's just, where do you downgrade then to get Trippier in for Burn, I assume, or if you want to double up with Burn and Trippier. If you want to sell someone like Pedro Porro, for example, or Gabriel, you'd still need to make up 1.6 or something in midfield or attack. So which players would you drop to get that money?
Who do you think?
I mean, Jared Bowen, I guess.
Oh, Jared Bowen, I guess.
For who?
No, it's potentially. I'm not 100%. No,
surely not.
It's potentially.
Saka.
Potentially like a Mitoma and Pedro Porro, maybe. Would that be enough?
Who would you sell Mitoma for? Huang, maybe. Suchek.
Yeah.
Palmer.
Huang and
or like a 4.3 like Chukwuemeka or something like that as well. He's actually got a setback now apparently, so yeah. Either way.
Yeah, something like that.
So you downgrade the midfield to get Trippier in this team?
Currently, just because Trippier's just been so goddamn good.
Yeah.
But I don't hate Mitoma or Bowen as picks, so just go without him. See what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like he's gotten his points now, and he has overperformed his numbers. I'm just gonna say it. Like he hasn't even gotten 1 expected assist or like expected goal index in involvement. He hasn't gotten over 1 in any other games. So
that's some of the saltiest fucking words.
Yeah, I mean it's the same. It's the same as Cancelo last season. I know. It's repeats. but yeah, I've so far not so good. I know I should have had Trippier earlier, but at the same time I didn't really have the money, I guess, with my team either. But either way, I think it's just too expensive, pretty much. And I think there are so many good defenders. Like I really like Cash. I really like Gabriel. I really like Pedro Porro. I really like Burn as well. I don't think he's going to get that much less than the Trippier, but yeah, that's pretty much my thinking with that. So yeah, I think that's pretty much the team. You had more criticism about this team than you've had for the first 8 teams combined. So yeah, that's good to hear, by the way. Always happy with constructive criticism. The other thing I want to just talk about with this team in general that has happened since I made this video, it seems like Mark Flekken is going to be back earlier than expected, because there were originally reports he was going to be out until mid-November, but apparently now he's sort of back in training-ish still, so maybe Strakosha is just like, but he's a 14th pick anyway, but maybe go Turner rather than Strakosha. But yeah, just to go through the team for anyone that hasn't seen the episode yet and are just listening through Spotify or something like that. In goal, I have Oriola and Strakosha as the goalkeepers. Probably should be Turner rather than Strakosha, like I said. In defense, it's Menikash, Gabriel Magalash, Pedro Porro, and Burn and Branthwaite. In midfield, I have Salah, Diaby, Saka, Mitoma, and Bowen. And in attack, I have Holland, Watkins, and Cameron Archer. That's pretty much the team. But yeah, if you haven't seen that video already, please check back on the YouTube channel and see the weekly wildcard draft, where I go through every single player and talk about why I have that player in my team and why I have them ranked, because I ranked them from number 1 until number 15 as well. But yeah, that's the weekly wildcard draft. We are going on about an hour on the podcast so far, so let's move on to our plans for Game Week 9. And this is Kevin's plans, and it basically entails Estepinian out. And what's interesting with this is the fact that you have 0.0 in the bank, and with the price changes to Estepinian going down to 5.1, so you can sell him for 5.0 And both Medicash and Pedro Porro are going up to 5.1. Means that you can't get either Porro or Cash. So first of all, how frustrating is that? Because I know those two are the two main defenders you were looking at before you realized the fact that you don't have the money to get them. How frustrating is that? And what do you feel about the other alternatives for Estepinian?
It's just really frustrating simply because I knew that I wanted to get rid of Estupinian, but unfortunately, with injuries and travel and etc., you never know what could happen. I could have easily have done Cash or Pedro Porro prior to anything, and still something could have happened, and that would have backfired, and that would have been a wasted transfer either way. Sometimes you can look out, they're fine, everything's good to go, and then it's all good. But I wanted to play it safe and wait until I had more news and could therefore make moves. For example, if the Robertson thing is true and it's longer than a month or two, I think Simicas, just generally speaking, is a great asset and a great pick. Yes, clean sheet wise, I don't think he'll contribute much, but offensively, he's really good. So and can get an easy cross in. So yeah, I think he's definitely a good shout. I think Adogi I've had in the previously, and I know he's capable of pretty cool stuff. So definitely on my radar as well. And Gabriel's your pick and good shout from you. Of course, we know what an offensive threat he can be. He's one of those guys who's susceptible to like a 15-point game. He's definitely got in, and it's just a question of whether Arteta actually trusts him or not, because that was really strange. I don't understand why he ever was like benched the way he
Mm.
was, and etc. So I think him and Saliba are easily 2 and 1 respectively. I think Saliba is the better pick out of the two in terms of real life football as well. But obviously they're both great complementary pieces to each other. So yeah, never understood why Gabriel got benched in the beginning. And I'll be honest, I wasn't one of those guys who was like, I was always going to pick Saliba. I picked Saliba just because we found out through the leaks. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's going to be tough. I still have no idea what I want to do. If I hear anything about Saka being injured, then I'm 100% like, if it is that his injury is longer than they feared and he's actually set for the sidelines, then I'm 100% considering Son or potentially even Madison as well. Or,
Some would be for hit because he's more pricey than Saka.
yeah, of course, it would be for a hit regardless. That I'd probably make a step down into like a Brantwaite or some cheapo
Potentially Chimikas.
defender.
I'm not sure if you can do that.
Yeah,
Maybe you can do
maybe,
Estepinian to Chimikas and then Saka to Son. Not
maybe.
entirely sure. I don't think so because I think Saka is 8.6 and Son is 9.5 at this point. So I don't think it's enough actually. So it would be like a 4.0 defender.
Yep, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I hate my team. I wish I had Mo simply because I got a bunch of injuries and stuff and suspensions and etc. out of nowhere. Like Tavares, who was looking good, just got injured out of nowhere. Estupinian both got subbed off and injured. Saka got injured. Flecking got uh,
And
COVID or some bullshit. Apparently, it's
non-related,
not
non-COVID
non-related to
related
COVID, but it
illness.
sounds a lot like COVID considering the length that he's out for. And then Gusto got the red card, and so like everything just fucking went to hell. Um, so currently, Estupinian out for a simple move seems to be fine as well because I think a lot of people are panicking about certain players and etc. and taking like crazy minus hits and stuff like that. So I don't mind just gaining on them slowly with a few differential players here and there, and then eventually making a big play to get a Sondor Madison and stuff like that.
Yeah. One of those players you mentioned that people might be too hasty to sell might be Raheem Sterling, who you still have in your team, and you haven't mentioned him as a potential sale either, even though he plays Arsenal. But they have Brentford in the following game week as well. Brentford at home, I think. So yeah, you're looking likely to keep him. I know you didn't get his points last game week because you had a free hit in game week 8, and you kept Fernandes, but you sold Sterling on the free hit, sadly.
Mm.
But yeah, is he someone that you're definitely going to keep, or is he potentially someone you could sell or downgrade to someone like Diaby to get more money for?
Yeah, I mean, I could just do the Diaby move now and benefit from his hat trick against West Ham, but I think Chelsea currently, him and Palmer and um, sort of Nicholas Jackson are the threat because everyone else is kind of like Broja, I think, is rusty. He still needs a little bit more time to get into the fold. And obviously, a bunch of these players have been misfiring, but had my best friend Nkunku been playing, he'd be in my team straight away, sort of thing. So for the time being, is Sterling that Nkunku type for them? 100% he is. So yeah, I think the England snub will also hit him. It'll hit him the wrong way. So I think he's gonna save some magic for the Arsenal game.
Yeah, fair enough. That's pretty much your team. I think, yeah, Estupiñán out seems like the obvious transfer, but if we had news that Estupiñán might be back for Game Week 10, maybe you could look into getting a defender somewhere else potentially,
Yeah.
or something like that. Maybe even Gusto plays against Arsenal and you want to back him because you think you seem to
Yeah, he
have.
played well for France, to be fair.
Yeah, Gusto is a really good player, and Tavares as well. If he's back playing Luton at home, that's a really good fixture as well.
Yeah.
So there are some options to not sell Estupiñán potentially if you get more news, but as it stands right now, with Saka probably being back from injury, Tavares probably not being ready to start, Gusto playing against Arsenal, it seems to make sense to sell Estupiñán, and then you have the three options: Udogi, Tsimikas, or Gabriel as like the main options. There are some other options. You could go with the West Ham defender as well, but that would be doubling up with Areola, so maybe not the best idea. But I think personally, I would go with Gabriel. I just have a lot of faith in Gabriel. He is obviously, if you look at my weekly wildcard draft, he is the highest rated defender I have, apart from cash, who you can't afford. You don't have enough cash, ironically. But yeah, I think Gabriel is probably what I would go with. But Tsimikas is also someone that I nearly brought into my weekly wildcard drafts, especially depending on Robertson's injury status. If Robertson is out for like 3 months, I think Tsimikas is an amazing pick because you said they might not get any clean sheets, but Liverpool have some really easy fixtures, and I think clean sheets could be on the table as well as offensive points from Tsimikas. So I think he's a really good shout. But yeah, Tsimikas or Gabriel most likely for me. Udogi is also a really good shout, but yeah, you have a lot of different things you can go with there. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about Kimo's team, and Kimo has not really had his focus on FPL lately because he is Egyptian, so he's pretty near to the conflict between Israel, or conflict, I shouldn't really use that word either. Kimo will get mad at me, but yeah, everything happening in Gaza currently, his plans are not, or he's not even thinking about FPL. But luckily for him, he has a pretty good team already. He wildcarded last week, so I think just standing pat is a pretty good idea for Kimo, basically. Don't really think there are too much things to change with this team. With Spurs at home to Fulham, you have the Aston Villa boys against West Ham at home, should be a decent fixture. Every single player has a home game in this team as well. So are there any transfers you would make with Kimo's team, or would you just save 2 transfers for Game Week 10 where the fixtures swing a little bit for a couple of these teams?
I'd just save it. Yeah, standing pat's a very good option, and he has a really good team. So go for it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much that simple. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea. But we'll have more interesting things to discuss next game week because Game Week 10, I think there are a lot of interesting things you can talk about, especially also with the Spurs midfielders. Maybe you'll back me more on the no Spurs midfielders allowed sort of train there, but yeah, Madison I know is one of Kimo's favorite players, so I think he's going to keep Madison for the long haul. But yeah, we'll see. Next up, we have the manager of the week, and like everyone else watching this, you can also be the manager of the week if you join our mini league, which is the league code V9JT0D. And if you get the highest score in a particular game week, we talk about you in the following podcasts in terms of being the manager of the week. And the manager of the week for game week 8 was David Large, who had a really good team, got a lot of points. He had Sterling, obviously, got a lot of points. He has Salah captain, which got him a lot of points. And he has a pretty good team this game week as well. But he has a lot of options in my view, because currently he has Botman slightly, potentially not playing. He might still be injured, Botman. They play Crystal Palace at home. But if he plays, you could easily just put him into the starting lineup and put Pape Sarr out of the team. Papa Sarr plays against Fulham at home, but Sarr has been pretty defensive lately. He started the season pretty offensively minded, but I don't think he's going to get that many points. So I think you could easily bench him for Botman if Botman is fit. So standing pat is definitely an option, but you could also sell Sarr, get someone like Gordon. He has exact money to get Gordon for Sarr. He also has the money to go from Sterling to someone like Maddison if he wants to. But he can't actually get Maddison because he has Sarr already. But Diaby is the transfer that I listed there. Sterling to Diaby is a potential transfer as well. But like we said, we kind of like Sterling for at least the next game week 10. I think Sterling has a pretty good shot of being a good player. And also what we haven't really discussed that much is Alvarez potentially being benched. If we get the team leaks of him being benched, could easily sell Alvarez and get someone like Højlund, who I think has really good fixtures, especially in Game Week 9 as well. What's also interesting with David Large is the fact that he doesn't have a wildcard, so he can't wildcard in Game Week 10, and that's when Kevin's lights go out as well, as we speak. But yeah, I think there are a lot of options with this team. So looking at this, all the potential transfers that this guy can do, I think defensively he has a pretty good team. But what transfers entice you the most out of these, or potentially a different transfer that I haven't thought about? Is there anything that stands out to you in terms of what this guy can do for Game Week 9?
Yeah, I mean, I think all the suggestions that you've said are good, especially like the one of Sarr Gordon, because I think, like you said, um, you can keep some of these players for at least another week, especially Mbeumo as well. I think Sterling to Diaby seems like a really obvious move too. Um, I'd stand pat on Alvarez because we know that Alvarez is gonna play for longer. My question is whether maybe considering. I mean, I just said Embuemo should stay, but considering the fact that Embuemo's looked pretty shocking, you could switch him to a Diaby and keep Sterling for that next week because Embuemo next week is who again?
That's the game against Chelsea. Chelsea away.
Yeah. So
Look at the fixture ticker. Yeah.
yeah. So I would say, yeah, I would say, and Embuemo's looking after this game week looking pretty dire. That maybe
And
that's the move
most likely
to do.
Mbeumo is going to play as a wing back as well because Aaron Hickey got suspended last time around, so he's not going to play against Burnley. So they don't really have anyone to choose from. They have Roslev who plays right wing back. So I don't really know what they're going to do either with their tactics, but I don't know. I've just been bitten before by selling players who have really easy fixtures, so that's why I'm sort of hesitant to selling Mbeumo this game week. But yeah.
I haven't had Mbeumo in a while, and I have not looked back. So, yeah. So I am on the Mbeumo out train.
Yeah. So we go with the Diaby, even though he has a really tough fixture against West
I
Ham.
mean, otherwise, you could just easily do Sarr for Gordon because that's such a massive upgrade, and then just do Mbeumo out for Diaby next week because that would be more than enough, right?
Sarr for Diaby next. What were we saying? What were we saying? Who for Diaby?
Okay, no. You take Sarr out for Gordon this week, and then next week you take Mbeumo out for Diaby.
Yeah. I mean, should have enough for Mbeumo to Diaby anyway, straight up.
Yeah. But in case, I think out of
Mbeumo without the
and
money as
Sarr,
well, I can't.
like, you put it this way, without Mbeumo.
Yeah, if you do Sarr to Gordon, you can't actually do Mbeumo to Diaby because I think Diaby is like 0.1 or 0.2 more expensive than Mbeumo. And Sarr to Gordon would leave this guy with 0.0 in the bank.
Shit. Okay.
So yeah, that's actually a really good argument for not doing the Sarr to Gordon move because it really restricts you. But you can go Mbeumo to Mitoma actually. Mitoma in next game week as well. You don't have to go with Diaby.
No. Diaby isn't a must, but he's just a talented player that we both like. So then maybe
you say the same for Mitoma, I guess.
Yeah. So maybe Sarr, Gordon, and Mbeumo, and hell, if Fati's playing a striker and is going crazy, then that's another player. Or potentially making Morris into Ferguson, for example. Like that shouldn't be that difficult of a move up as well. So you got options.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason that I didn't catch what you were saying last time was because I was about to ask you a different question. Because that was if Botman is fit and healthy, surely he plays in this team as well. And Sar seems like the
Sorry.
obvious option to swap him out with. But then
Yeah.
you wouldn't do Sar to Gordon because you don't need that transfer.
Yeah.
So if
Exactly.
Botman is fit, would you just stand pat, you think?
Yeah. Potentially, and just let's Sterling and Buemo and Saar on the bench.
Yeah.
Uh, like let those two cook and let Saar just get his three
I mean,
points.
you could bench Sar regardless for Carlton Morris who plays against Nottingham Forest away as well.
Yeah, that's true actually. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those are our suggestions for David Large, who was the manager of the week last week. Like I said, you could also be manager of the week if you become the highest scorer in Game Week 9 or Game Week 10, Game Week 11, all the way up until Game Week 38, because we're going to have the podcast going throughout this whole season. So hopefully, any of you guys watching get some good advice from this YouTube channel. Hopefully, you can subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, that's pretty much it for this podcast. And I'll leave the final word with Kevin, as always. So let's see what Kevin has to say this week.
Visca Barca, because we're going to be heading there very soon, and considering Barcelona politics and Independencia being a very important thing, free Palestine as well.
Fair enough. See ya and goodbye.